I'm 72 years old, and 3 weeks ago, my daughter-in-law stood in my own kitchen in a quiet suburb outside Portland, Oregon, looked me dead in the eye, and calmly explained that my late husband's life insurance money was better managed if she controlled it. At the time, I thought it was just grief talking. I had no idea it was the beginning of something far uglier. My name's Linda Carter, and until recently I thought my biggest problem in life was learning how to sleep in a half-empty bed after 45 years of marriage. My husband Daniel passed away last winter after a long battle with heart disease. The kind that slowly drains the light out of someone you love while you sit beside them pretending everything will be okay. Daniel and I built a simple life in Eugene, Oregon. Nothing glamorous. A modest house, a small savings account, and the quiet pride of knowing we'd never owed anyone a dime. Our only child, my son Brandon, moved to Portland years ago after marrying a woman named Megan. At first, Megan seemed perfectly pleasant, polite, helpful, the kind of woman who always smiled just a little too brightly. But over the years, little things started to bother me. The way she spoke for Brandon whenever I asked him a question. The way she'd make comments like, "Retirement must be nice when other people are still working." Still, I ignored it. Families aren't perfect. After Daniel died, Brandon insisted I move closer to them for a while. "Mom, you shouldn't be alone right now," he told me over the phone. "Stay with us until you figure out what you want to do." At the time, it sounded like love. Looking back, it sounds more like the opening move of a chess game I didn't know I was playing. I moved into their guest room in Portland 2 weeks after the funeral. The house was modern, expensive, the kind with tall windows and polished concrete floors that made everything echo. Megan gave me a quick tour, pointing out where things were with the tone of someone explaining rules to a temporary visitor. "This is the kitchen. Please wipe the counters after using them. And Brandon needs quiet in the mornings before work." I remember blinking at her like I'd misunderstood something, but I let it go. Grief makes you tolerant of things you normally wouldn't accept. The first few weeks were peaceful enough. I helped cook dinner, folded laundry when Megan left piles of it on the couch, and tried to stay out of their way. But slowly, the tone in the house began to shift. Little comments started appearing like cracks in a wall. One evening during dinner, Megan looked at me and said, "Linda, have you figured out what you're doing with Daniel's insurance yet?" I shrugged. "Not really. I'm still sorting through paperwork." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You know, Brandon and I have experience with investments. It would probably be safer if we helped manage it." At the time, I didn't think much of it. But what happened next shocked me. Over the next few days, the subject kept coming up. Casual questions, subtle suggestions. Markets are unpredictable for someone your age. Large sums can disappear fast without guidance. You wouldn't want to make a mistake. It started to feel less like concern and more like pressure. Before I continue, if you enjoy real-life karma stories like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Anyway, back to what happened. About a week later, Megan cornered me in the kitchen while Brandon was at work. She leaned against the counter, arms folded. "So Linda," she said, "have you thought more about letting us manage that insurance money?" I set down my coffee mug slowly. "I appreciate the offer," I said carefully, "but Daniel and I already had plans for it." Her smile tightened. "Oh? Yes, I'm planning to move back to Eugene eventually, maybe help fund a small community program Daniel cared about." For a moment, the room went very quiet. Then Megan laughed. Not kindly, not politely, just sharply. "That's incredibly irresponsible," she said. I felt my chest tighten. "Excuse me? You're talking about throwing away hundreds of thousands of dollars on charity when Brandon and I are struggling with a mortgage." That was the first moment I realized something was very wrong. I tried to stay calm. "Megan, Daniel and I worked our whole lives for that money. It's meant to support me and the things we believed in." Her voice dropped, cold and flat. "Well, maybe Brandon should have a say in it too." The words hung in the air like smoke. And that's when things took a turn I never saw coming. That night at dinner, Megan brought it up again in front of Brandon. "Your mom says she's planning to give away your inheritance." I nearly dropped my fork. Brandon frowned. "Mom? What?" It's not an inheritance, I said quickly. It's insurance money, meant for Daniel's care and my future. Megan leaned back in her chair, watching the tension grow like someone enjoying a show. Brandon rubbed his temples. Mom, maybe Megan's right. Maybe we should at least look at the finances together. That was the moment the ground shifted beneath my feet, because suddenly it felt like I was outnumbered in a house that was supposed to be safe. But what I didn't realize yet was that Megan had already taken things much further than a conversation. And I wouldn't discover how far until 3 days later, when a letter arrived in the mail with my name on it. A letter that made my hands start shaking before I even finished reading the first paragraph, because according to that document, someone had already tried to access my husband's insurance money, and the signature authorizing it looked terrifyingly familiar. For a moment, I sat at the dining table with that letter in my hands, staring at the signature like my brain refused to accept it. My husband Daniel had always handled our finances meticulously. Every account, every policy, every investment meticulously documented. If someone tried to access that insurance policy early, it wasn't a mistake, it was deliberate. And the signature looked uncannily like my son Brandon's handwriting. At first, I tried to convince myself there had to be an innocent explanation. Maybe the insurance company made a clerical error. Maybe Brandon had only tried to help, thinking he was being considerate. But my gut said the truth wouldn't be that simple. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. I didn't confront anyone right away. After 72 years on this earth, I'd learned that reacting too quickly only benefits those trying to corner you. Instead, I made a phone call. Daniel had trusted one person with our finances for decades, his longtime attorney, Robert Heirs in Eugene. Robert had handled our wills, our insurance policies, and our estate planning, everything. If anyone could untangle this, it was him. When he answered, his voice softened immediately. Linda, I was just thinking about you. How are you holding up? I've been better, I admitted quietly. Robert, I need to ask you something serious. I explained the letter, the suspicious withdrawal request, and the questionable signature. There was a long pause on the other end. Then Robert said something that made my heart skip. Linda, that request was denied 2 weeks ago. Denied? I repeated, my voice tight. Yes. The insurance company flagged it as suspicious immediately. My pulse quickened. Suspicious how? Because the policy requires your authorization, not Brandon's. Someone tried to transfer the funds into a joint account under Brandon and Megan's names without your approval. My chest tightened. They tried more than once? Yes. 3 separate attempts, Robert said gravely. Linda, the insurance company has opened a formal fraud investigation. If you cooperate, they could catch the perpetrators. For the first time since Daniel died, I felt something other than grief. I felt a cold, fiery anger. 22 years I had welcomed Megan into our family, and this was how she repaid that trust, by attempting to steal the very funds my husband had left to protect me. I agreed immediately to help. Over the next 2 weeks, investigators quietly gathered evidence, phone records, emails, signed documents, digital trails. Meanwhile, I stayed calm in Eugene, saying nothing to Brandon or Megan. I observed, planned, waited. Eventually, the insurance company suggested I invite Brandon and Megan under the pretense of discussing the policy. I agreed. That afternoon, Brandon and Megan arrived, both looking irritated. Megan crossed her arms tightly. Linda, we drove 2 hours for this. What's going on? I gestured to the chairs. Sit. We need to discuss the insurance policy. Brandon sighed dramatically. Mom, we already talked about this. Megan and I can help you invest it wisely. That won't be necessary, Robert interrupted smoothly. Megan's eyes snapped toward him. Who are you? Robert Heirs, the Carter family attorney, he said calmly. The room went silent. Robert slid a folder across the table. Perhaps you'd like to explain these. Megan opened it, confusion spreading across her face. Brandon leaned over, reading quickly. Wait, what is this? Robert folded his hands deliberately. These are the documented attempts to transfer Mrs. Carter's insurance funds without her authorization. Megan slammed the folder shut, her nails tapping sharply against the polished table. That's ridiculous, she cried. Is it? Robert asked evenly, unflinching. Right then, 2 men stepped into the room, insurance investigators, calm but authoritative. Suddenly, the confident, self-assured daughter-in-law looked like someone watching her world collapse. Megan's voice cracked. "Linda, tell them this is a misunderstanding." I looked her straight in the eye. "No, Megan. I think they understand perfectly." Brandon's panic was unmistakable. "Mom, you called investigators. You tried to steal from me," I said simply, my voice calm but sharp. The evidence was overwhelming: every email, every forged form, every digital trace. Eventually, her voice broke entirely. "Linda, please. I was just trying to secure our future." I shook my head slowly. "You tried to steal mine." The investigation led to criminal fraud charges. Brandon lost his job. Megan's reputation and career collapsed. I moved back to Eugene shortly afterward. I donated part of the insurance money to the community medical fund Daniel had always supported, and the rest I used to create a quiet, secure life where no one could treat me like a bank account. Sometimes Brandon still calls, usually to apologize. But some things can't be undone. The day my daughter-in-law tried to steal from me wasn't just the day she lost the money, it was the day they both lost the trust and family that had been given freely for decades. And for me, for the first time in my adult life, I felt truly free. I was no longer just a mother, a widow, or a caretaker. I was a woman who knew her own strength, who had survived deception and betrayal, and who could finally live for herself.